My name's Adam, and I'll be here to facilitate the session today on how to manage stress and boost productivity, something that I have some really cool experience about that I'll share kind of today and give you a little bit about myself. I can see the chat box open on the side of the screen. So please feel free to ask questions and to be involved, even unmute yourself and to chime in, because as much as I'm sure everyone would love to hear me talk for an hour, it's really good when there's a bit of collaboration and we can work through subjects together. But apart from that, thanks for joining me today on a nice Wednesday. And it's great to kind of talk through this subject with people today and to understand kind of how people are handling stress in their life and talk about a subject that's close to my heart. So I think we'll call that and we'll get started. So as I mentioned, feel free to use the chat to ask questions, share comments and answers, others participating questions, feel free to send to everyone. And if you want to talk, feel free to unmute yourself. You know, it's always great to have some involvement in these sessions. Today, we're going to explore happiness, stress, productivity mindset, and the best tools to use, and also kind of biohacking yourself. And throughout this, I'm going to talk about tips and tricks that I have from my own career. But firstly, like, who am I and why am I here talking to you today? So I thought I'd give you a little bit of background. So as it says, my name's Adam. I left university, and as soon as I graduated university from the UK with a business degree in like entrepreneurship and international companies, what I did was I applied for a internship that was unpaid, and that was with some founders of a company called Rocket Internet, the Samwell brothers. And we went on to create the Groupon UK variation of Groupon Worldwide. I was in charge of creating the operational processes and rolling them out kind of across the world. By the age I was 21, I was managing 53 people. I then went on to do statistical analysis, sales director, and ultimately leave that to go on to the founding team of a company called Resdy, which is an online tour operator. So we provide the booking software that people use to be able to use like Viator, TripAdvisor, Red Balloon to book stuff like whale watching, escape rooms. From that, I had a company in San Francisco that I exited within a year with a friend, and invested in some startups over here. Was running Mind Body over here, the yoga software company, for a few years before I went into artificial intelligence and machine learning and smart buildings with some of the founders of Atlassian. And more recently, I've been running my own cryptocurrency and augmented reality NFT company. And also the head of country for Coinly, which is a crypto tax software company. So where I really kind of thrive is in those companies that have 2 or 3 people that want to take it to 50, 60 people very quickly, take their product to market and be able to deliver that to a wide audience on both B2C and B2B. So as you can imagine, that's pretty long hours. I mean, I start today at like 6 a.m. and I've got meetings all the way until kind of 10, 11 p.m. That's pretty standard for what I do. And happiness and stress and productivity is really important. And to kind of show you how important I take this, here's a very vulnerable photo of me. So 2 years ago, I weighed 50 kilos more than I currently do. So on the left there is what I looked like at the artificial intelligence company, and on the right is what I look like at the founder of my own company. And I lost 50 kilos by understanding the value of being happy and reducing stress, boosting my own productivity, and basically following my own journey and path in life. And I remember when I was that size, I never thought I was going to be skinny. Every day I put stress on myself because I didn't look the way I feel. I didn't feel as good as I felt in my job. Like I'm great at what I do technology wise, but I didn't feel like a good person outside of work. And pretty much work was my life. I remember telling a previous employer that Fridays was my worst time of the week. because it's when everyone went home and I had to wait until Monday to hang out with my team and friends again because work had become everything. And I went through a massive period of discovery to understand who I was as a person and to be able to change that perspective. It led to me losing 50 kilos in 6 months. I fell in love with painting and became a commissioned artist and started my own art and augmented reality company with both NFTs and crypto, and was really able to kind of give back to the world. So the main thing here is about taking action, understanding how things in your life are really playing into what you do every day, into your choices you make, evaluating your stress, and really being able to understand yourself. Like, I used to always take an Uber to work and order Uber Eats because I thought it was going to be easier for me. Being able to change those habits and understanding that taking the time to focus on myself as well as having a work-life balance was a key way to boost my productivity through taking those micro actions was super powerful. And part of that was also finding to do what you love. Like, I am fortunate enough that what I love to do is build tech companies. It's what gets me out of bed in the morning. And it's what I think about in the evening. And I know it sounds really nerdy, but it was a big part of my life for 10 years. And I know that I do what I love when I work in technology every day. But I also know that that doesn't have to be every part of my life. And through doing that, you can't expect every day to be happy, because realistically, even the best laid plans can go awry. Now, I've seen startups fail that have had the best idea and the best team to deploy, and a bigger company came along, spun up the idea quickly, and already had the customers to be able to deliver that idea. And sometimes work's going well and you have the death of a loved one or a failed relationship that can really knock you off your path. I heard a great saying the other day from someone who worked in the startup world with me. And they were like, being a founder seems like the ideal job. And as a founder, I sleep like a baby every day, which means I wake up every 2 hours crying. And I found that very funny, very true, because, the reality is that it would seem like everyone's ideal job to be a founder, to have your own tech company, have a team running around you as you go about your day-to-day life. But realistically, it's a real big weight to carry on your shoulders. You have people's livelihoods and salaries that are dependent on the decisions you make. And understanding that no one's path has been a direct line. It's the ups and downs that define us. A smooth sea never made a skilled sailor, as they say. And it's very easy to forget the daily challenges we go through taking the company to the level that we want. So that's a lot of information for me to download straight away. I mean, has anyone on the call had experiences of the plans not going right before, or anything that you would like to share around this sort of time where you've experienced this? No, we got a quiet team today. That's okay. I like talking. So this is probably a graph that a lot of you have seen before, especially if you work in business or studying business. You can see, we call this the duck underwater. Someone once told me that one of the biggest stresses that you can see is someone who seems to handle their life like a duck on water, which is when you ever see a duck swimming on water, it's very smooth, its leg underneath are kicking and pushing as hard as you can. And I can attest to this statement in front of you guys. I mean, I've been what some would class very lucky in business. I've had times where I've considered myself wealthy, and I had times very shortly after that where I would struggle to pay my bills, pay my rent, or to eat. because it's never a straight line. But that's, you know, the choice that I chose in my career. And, you know, understanding that it's not a straight line and all these stresses are going to weigh on you daily, whether it be personal, business, relationships, family, financial stress. Sometimes, you know, you just can't check what's happening. I mean, I spoke to some friends of mine today that were software developers that live in Ukraine. And, you know, when they started working this year, they didn't expect that they would be in the situation that they're currently in or facing in Ukraine. So, you know, their success is a completely different ballpark now from what they thought it would be, and being able to cope with these sort of things. I mean, I don't claim to understand what they're going through, but more a sense of, you know, sometimes things happen that are outside of your control, and as humans, we have to handle that. And as myself, someone that gets very excited about things, I'm very much in this mindset of like, I'm excited, this is too hard. Is it working? I've messed up. Like that up and down, back and forth is something that we can all resonate with in our life. And as we kind of talk about, you know, how to manage this stress today, it's really important to understand that you're not in this alone, that this is a regular thing for people to experience. So one thing I like to suggest to people to do is to understand that they should focus on getting 1% better every day towards their goal. Like imagine if you, like they say the best time to go to the gym or to learn to play the guitar was 6 months ago or 6 years ago, but the second best time is today. If there's things that you want to do that are building up on your mind, like focusing on getting 1% better every day, and trying to process your stress, process everything you have 1% better every day, and knock down your tasks that 1% every day to be able to deliver the long-term goals is super important. You know, I remember a time where I was working for 2 companies, starting up my own company and waiting for my visa to get approved. And it just felt like there was so much to do that I could do nothing to fix it. And I just wanted to lay on the couch and do nothing. And that's not productive for me to be able to do. And I just focused then on getting 1% better every day, whether that was focusing on moving my visa 1% towards the goal, or like helping this company grow by putting like 1% more effort in today than I did yesterday. It slowly helped me get better to understand the process of just moving in the right direction is key. So your brain is your biggest asset. This is something for us all to remember, but it's also your biggest enemy. So the average person has 80,000 thoughts a day. Of those thoughts, 80% are negative and 95 were the exact same repetitive thoughts as the day before. I'm sure we've all experienced this, where our mind just keeps going over the same thing. We feel like we're not moving forward and progressing. And that's something that we come up against quite a lot when we're talking about managing stress and boosting productivity, is that constant repetitive thought. And the best way to deal with that is to just block out time for yourself where they can be removed. In my calendar, I actually have times where it's just me, just reflecting on kind of what's happened so far in the day, the meetings I have, the meetings in my past, my personal progression, to help me find my balance. It helps me avoid that negative mindset. And actually in that time, I mean, we all find our own way, and we'll talk about biohacking very soon. But I realized that I really enjoyed music and like dancing around and just moving. And I block out time in my calendar to just listen to music, process my thoughts, and to get ready for the remainder of the week. And it really helps me just kind of take out that negative mindset by blocking it out. Stress. We all know SpongeBob and the stress pencil. So stress is a key a key thing for people these days, especially when studying or in work, how we handle it. And the emotional intelligence that kind of goes with managing stress is something that, like, all of this is not going to be new to people as we go through it, but understanding kind of my reality through it, your reality through it, and how best we can manage this moving forward is going to be key. So if we look at the definition, emotional intelligence refers to the ability to identify, manage, and control one's own emotions as well as the emotions of others. Now, there's two key points here. The first one is controlling our own emotions. Like, I can imagine many times when I've been in a situation where someone has said something to me, or I felt too stressed, or like my outside of work situation came into work, or inside of work, outside of work, and I snapped when I shouldn't. And I think if we all ask ourselves about it, it could be something that we can find in ourselves quite regularly. So if we find ourselves being unable to control those emotions, then, our emotional intelligence can do with some stretching. And also when it comes to controlling the emotions of others, well, that doesn't need to be control in the terms of negative control, but even if I think about a relationship I'm in with my partner, when we're having a conversation about something where my opinion may be different to theirs, I take the approach of how can I identify, manage, and control this in the way that best benefits them, as opposed to controlling to my own outlay. So like the emotional intelligence that maybe they started a new job today and they're super stressed and they can't find their keys before they're leaving. And I also have to go to a meeting, but it's not my first day at work. And I understand their stress. I can then know that I need to control my emotions as well as helping control theirs to facilitate everyone being calm to achieve that. The goal of finding the keys. Now, that's the same as when you're in business. Sometimes I ask myself when I'm in that conversation of what a win looks like. You can find yourself at a restaurant being ignored by wait staff, or you could find yourself in a difficult work situation, find yourself missing your plane because your taxi took a wrong route. But with the emotional intelligence, you can ask yourself that, what does a win look like? Like, is a win me shouting at this person or getting frustrated with this person for something that they can't change no matter how annoyed I am at them? Or does a win be me being able to control my emotions to a point where I believe that I can have an effective outcome, i.e., I can help guide them on a better direction, I can call and book a new plane. Like, there's so many different ways that you can garnish your emotional intelligence to be able to ensure that you deal with a situation with a calm head without kind of just blurting out and causing more emotional stress than you need. So our first activity here, and this doesn't need to be shared with others, but what I'd like you to do is take a minute to write down on a piece of paper or on notes. Good tip for you. If you ever want to find a really easy way to find a blank note, then just type docs.new in your Google URL bar, and it will open up a brand new Google Doc for you. It works same as sheets.new or anything else like that. Just a little top tip for you. But on a piece of paper, write down as many feelings as you can recall over the past 24 hours. And it's just for you, no one will see it. But one thing I can talk about is, I spoke to a lawyer about finalizing the sale of one of my companies. That made me very excited. I spoke to a friend about wrapping up his business because it wasn't going well, and that made me down. I spoke to a new friend about potentially a new job they were doing, which would be very beneficial for them. It made me excited. I felt anxious about making sure that I prepared the slides efficiently enough to talk through this service. I felt anxious because we checked out a new co-working space for Coinly, and like I get very edgy kind of going to new work environments where we haven't been there before, when I have to bring a whole new team in to find a new home. You know, like having that vulnerability of just running through the things you've done in the last day or so and asking yourself how you feel and the feelings you went through is really interesting, because once you start seeing the wide variety of feelings you go through, then it will really start helping you understand kind of how your mind does these mental loops of repeating feelings. And look, I'm not going to ask you guys to post it today because I know that it's confidential for yourself, but make sure you go through and write down those and add up the total number of feelings that were recorded, because it's important to see like how many emotions we go through every day. And understanding that means you can understand the real emotional challenge that's in front of you of managing that emotional intelligence. And make sure that you define them between positive and negative. And I don't want to talk too much around negative stuff, but there's a really good story that I like to share about Joe Biden. Political views aside, Joe Biden's son died when he was a lot younger, and Joe Biden really struggled with his son dying. And he said to himself, you know, he wrote on a calendar every day whether he was happy or unhappy. And for the first 6 months, he saw a lot of unhappy faces, didn't really start seeing any green faces in there till about 6 months, where he had maybe 1 or 2 happy faces a month. By the end of the year, 3 or 4 happy faces a month. And within 2 years, half of the month was happy faces. And what it showed him is that his ability to change his mindset was a lot longer than he thought it would be. But in general, it was moving towards being happy. So being able to take count of the positive, negative thoughts, make sure that you're keeping a good balance on those on a daily basis is super important. And also understand that you will have good days and bad days. You know, Bob Ross mentioned when his wife died that you have good days and bad days, and he was waiting on the good days when that episode was recorded. It's important to know. So what are the negative effects of what are the effects of negative emotions? Like, I find myself when I get into a really negative thought about the day, that it narrows my thinking, you know, limits my interpretations of things. I find that there's a saying that kind of sums it up well, which is false conclusions. I end up having the kind of horse blinkers on. It gives me false conclusions of things from the day. Whereas if I took a positive emotion, you know, what am I supposed to learn from this? What problem can I solve? How can my behavior kind of make this a more positive experience, and thinking more deeply about issues? Really, like, if I could pick between the two, if there was a literal switch in the morning, positive emotion, negative emotions, I know where I'd sit. But it is like something in the gym. You have to train yourself every day with this to be able to constantly develop the right positive emotions. And a lot of people say that stress is a choice. Now, I don't believe that to a certain degree. I believe that stress is putting our body in a situation that we're not used to being in. How we process that stress is a choice, but the actual feeling of stress is an automatic reaction. And same again, this do not enter slide, we get back to making sure that if you are feeling stressed, you're making the time for yourself. Block up time for yourself to be able to process the stress, work in 30-minute blocks, set up those alerts that you need to make sure that you can manage your calendar. Because what we'll talk about today is if you have too much going on, like how best to process your calendar, organize it, and also drive your day-to-day behaviors to reduce that stress. And remember that it takes 21 days to build a habit and 90 days to build a lifestyle. So how can you product management your productivity with all these variables going on in the life, the same way that we've been speaking about, whether it be external with family, friends, or internal with a company or your own company or your studies? How do you product manage this productivity? So a big secret that the founder of AE Study likes to talk about is that being busy doesn't mean being productive. So what that means is, it's very easy for me to fill my day with meetings. And I'll give a good example. The company I'm working for at the moment, Coinly, we're hiring 30 people. And I have maybe 4 weeks to hire 30 people. And when I look at my calendar, I could be having interviews every single day with as many candidates as possible to show my bosses in the UK that I'm busy hiring people. But what I did instead was spend 2 days writing the most accurate job descriptions I could think of, then going to go meet a couple of HR companies and recruitment companies to brief them on the roles and my vision, and to then sit back to be able to then let the resumes come to me and pick the right ones that I was looking to meet. So being able to slow down and understand that being busy doesn't mean being productive is key. Everyone's heard the saying, work smarter and not harder. Well, when we talk about working smarter, one of the things we talk about is this banner that's in front of us, which is having SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And these slides will be available afterwards, but I always like to ask myself, is what I'm doing a SMART goal? Is it specific? Do I know exactly what I'm doing? Measurable? What's my KPIs? Achievable? Can I do it in the time frame? Is it relevant? And what time frame do I need to get it done with? And will I get done in a specific amount of time? So all of these are questions I'll ask myself whenever I'm setting myself goals. And your team and your own understanding of who you are, it's very important to kind of understand what type of person you fit into when you are looking at different types of teams. And there's so many tests out there. Myers-Briggs indicators, bosses, you can see here. I mean, the idea is to really understand yourself and give yourself that vulnerability to say, okay, well, if I am a defender executive and a opportunistic builder, then how is the best way for me to work? And what are my weaknesses? And to go back to kind of understanding that to mitigate stress. I'm hiring a head of marketing who has 90% of the skill sets I need. And when I ask him, what skill set don't you have? He's like, I am not very good at SEO. Well, in this case, that allows me to have that information to go and build a hiring plan to backfill that role within another team. Instead of someone saying to myself, oh, I can do everything or I'm the best at this. Knowing who you are, knowing your skill sets, your liabilities, your weaknesses, your opportunities, your threats, being able to process that will help you get a framework that you need to be able to backfill those roles. And it's going to be super important as we kind of go through the next steps of how to biohack and to optimize yourself. And learning to say no is a key one. And I'll share a really interesting point that I had here. So one day I was hired by MindBody SaaS Systems, because when I was over in the UK visiting family, I went to their office, turned up with a box full of muffins and sat outside and was like, I want to work for you guys. Can I have an interview? And it took about 2-3 months before they finally settled me up for an interview. And they called me about 2-3 years later to say, would I be interested still in joining the company? And I joined the company and was tasked to hire 30 staff members in Australia. And I hired these 30 staff members, but what I really wanted to do was make them feel heard. So whenever they asked me something, I was always available for them. And I actually ended up going to speak to a stress coach, because I said to him, look, I'm having panic attacks daily here, because whenever I start 5 minutes on something, someone else taps me on the shoulder and tells me that I need to help them with something else. And she said, well, have you said to them that you can't help them right now? And the idea of saying to someone in my team that I couldn't help them, or the idea of not stopping one conversation because another conversation had come in and trying to help them, was foreign to me, because I was so used to being able to handle the smaller team I had, that once it got bigger and there was so many sideways conversations going on, I couldn't quite do it. And she said to me, Adam, the next thing I want you to do is, when you're in one of these conversations, when you're constantly being interrupted by other people needing stuff from you, just put your hand up and say, I need to finish this conversation, have a few minutes in which to process it and action this conversation, and then I'm ready for a new one. She taught me how to say no in a conversational situation within an office, because I wanted to help everyone. And that was a really powerful tool that someone was able to share with me, to be able to take that across to running a tech company of that size. And it's something as simple as saying no, like having your own boundaries, having your own time frame. You know, we've all sat in meetings that we thought, what the hell do I need to be here for? This doesn't need me. Being able to say no in the future, to remove that from your calendar, is important. Because as Steve Jobs says, only by saying no can you concentrate on the things that are really important. And there's a reason that Google gives people so much time in their work week to focus on their own projects that they have to work on. Because, you know, it's important that you have this time to kind of break down from the day-to-day minutia. So what tools can you use to do this? So here is like a calendar from one of the people in our team. As you can see, it's pretty hectic. Well, they actually break it down by putting it into different sections throughout the day. Now, this is someone that works 6 days a week, but that's mainly because I've seen her calendar and this is what she needs to do to be able to deliver on the work that she does. And it's because she owns a company. You know, she is the founder. And she likes to make sure that on the weekend she has her own time, prepares for the weekend, and she splits different days into different operational segments to be able to organize her calendar to run a team. Now, this is a lady who is running one of the most efficiently run companies I know in my mind. And whenever I speak to her, she's happy, she's positive, and she knows like how everyone else in her team is feeling. And she does this through being able to have this control on her time. And if you see, she's still got stuff in here like lunchtime. She's still got lessons that she needs to do. She's got time with Fitness First to work out in the gym. But her time is really well planned out, with time for herself as well. See, there's health, there's sales, there's team, there's urgent, there's pink, there's gray. Like it's color coordinated and day coordinated to provide the most efficient time she needs. Now, this is one of the best case examples I've seen of someone optimizing their time to have a work-life balance. But you really need to understand your strengths and weaknesses to be able to create something like this that works for yourself. And recommend that you start looking at something called time blocks to be able to do this. Like, give yourself those time allocations that you need to run in the most efficient way. And why not kill two birds with one stone, which is making time for both yourself and allocating key tasks within your calendar. And you can use PM tools to break up the projects and to work with other people. Like, don't feel like you're on this on your own. It's only you that has to do it. Like, having collaboration tools with the people in your team while also taking time for yourself will give you everything you need to kind of get through the main projects. And notifications can be a pain for us. Like for myself, I block out a lot of my notifications on times that I'm not working, because it's very common for me to wake up in the middle of the night and to be reviewing my notifications, you know, be laying next to your girlfriend, checking your phone at 1 o'clock in the morning to see if there's any sales. And it's really important to know that like I am that type of person that does that, and I need to manage that stress in a more effective way. Because as Aristotle says, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. Which leads me to one of our final points, which is biohacking. And biohacking is probably the most valuable way of knowing yourself and understanding how best you work effectively. And that is, it like could be as simple as being a morning person or an evening person. It could be understanding that your best version of yourself, if you wake up and go to F45 in the morning, if you're vegan, if you go to yoga, if you go out with the guys to play poker, like whatever it's going to be that makes you the best version of yourself on both an emotional level and a work level is biohacking to a degree. And if you want to talk about this in terms of popular authors, then you know the authors of 4-Hour Workweek, Tim Ferriss, and 4-Hour Body, like he went on to build the 4-Hour Workweek, so which is not working harder but smarter and outsourcing a lot of work. He went on to biohacking, like even testing his body to understand how much sleep he needed or how much exercise he needed and the food he needed to have to basically be the most efficient version of himself. And the most simplest way to understand biohacking is if you wake up in the morning and you don't have coffee and you feel tired and lethargic and you have coffee and you're suddenly wide awake, even though that is a stimulant, that's what it's designed to do, you're biohacking that the only difference is the coffee in your stomach that has made you feel more engaged. Now that's the same across anything. It could be working out, it could be meditation, but whatever helps you engage to that core that you need is essentially biohacking when it's replicated on a regular scale to help you achieve your goals. And really helping getting you into that flow. Exercise is a great way to do that. You know, what you put into your body is a really important way to do that. And as a guy that lost 50 kilos, I can talk about that all day. And energy, like managing your energy. You know, I used to work with guys that enjoyed having beers every day after work, and their energy levels would progressively get worse towards the end of the week. You know, they were biohacking themselves into sluggishness. Whereas having the energy through constant workout, eating right, you know, there's a lot of people in San Francisco that talk about Bulletproof Coffee as the effective way to start their day. You know, this is all biohacking. Like people are trying to find the most optimum way of being themselves and reducing their stress. MacBook helps you do that by turning your MacBook into a slightly yellow color at the end of the day. There's nothing wrong with tweaking your situation around you to make you more effective business person or life person. And sleep. Like sleep is one of those fundamentals we've been told since we're a kid. Eating right, exercising right, sleep, they all help to reduce stress, but understanding where your skill sets are, understanding your strengths and weaknesses and being able to biohack around that is great, because when you are grateful, you kill anxiety. Being grateful for having a happy and healthy body, being grateful to be peaceful in the day, to not have that stress mindset that I used to live with every day, is a really valuable tool. So on that, we have 7 minutes in which I'd like to open it up to the floor to talk about maybe your own stress reducing tactics or questions that you may have, or questions about my story that I can share, like whatever I can do to kind of help process the key goal, which is bossing your future and reducing your stress from the environment. I'd like to open it up to the floor if that's possible. Just seeing if we have any questions or any thoughts. Does anyone do anything that they find is very stress reducing that they would like to share with the colleagues on here? No? Well, what I'll do then is I'll maybe give you guys 6 minutes back in your day, and I'll stay online in case anyone has any one-on-one questions that they'd like to answer. But I'd like to thank you for joining us today. Looking forward to kind of working with you on future sessions. And if there's anything I can do to help you assist reducing your stress, increasing your productivity, then I'll be here for the next 5-10 minutes to answer your questions.
Hi, I was just wanted to say thank you. I thought it was like a different session though, but it has been really nice. So just wanted to say thank you.
Oh, that's okay. Thanks so much, Alejandro. That's great. I'm glad that you took yourself on mute to say that. What session did you think it was going to be?
Yeah, I think it's horrible to just be talking with a screen. So I was just wanted to say thank you.
Pardon? I
was just thinking that it's kind of not that nice when you're just talking with the screen and you don't really know that someone is actually listening to you. So I thought it was a good idea to say hi.
That's okay. Well, thanks so much.
And the question that they did, I think like what they were saying, like exercise and maybe like listen music and maybe reading and all those draft things also quite well.
Agreed. I mean, one of the things that really helped me, especially working from home, is do you know those medicine balls you can buy?
Yeah.
So those medicine balls you can buy, like I bought one of those maybe 3 kilos first, and I just started standing up, reading my screen and passing it behind my back. And then I started passing it the other way. And then over time, I started throwing it between my hands like I was juggling. And literally I was reading my emails and I was throwing this like 7 kilo ball, like bomb, 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 bomb. And then I was like, this got really easy. Maybe I'll go up. So I started going to like 10 kilos, 12 kilos, same thing, pass it around my back, passing it hand to hand. And I found that like those slow, it's not like, oh my God, I've got to work out. I've got to get active where I've got to do this. But it's like, damn, like I'm reading this email and this guy's being an ass, excuse my word. Okay, it's like, this guy's being an ass. Like, we've all experienced it. And you're like, how'd you deal with that? Well, when I had my, when I imagine this is my ball, like when I have my ball, I'd just be like, boom, like in between the hands, just throwing it back and forth. And I was like, wow, this guy's definitely being a bit of an ass today. And, but as I started picking up heavier and heavier ones, it's kind of like at least 10% of your energy has to be kept on not smashing your computer screen with this weight ball. And it's like, that's just enough for you to remember there's other things in life. So I used to throw that around. Then I used to be like on the phone call and put it on my arm and be like, just lifting it up like this, put dumbbells by it and just lifting it, because like, sometimes you're just like, this is frustrating. I want to say something. And being able to just sit there and being like, yep, I really appreciate what's going on. No problem. It gives you that repetitive. I find that even walking around the street sometimes, because I used to vape, I used to like smoke cigarettes, I used to have headphones on. Now I just count to 8 with my steps. I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
I think like one of the things that work for me is just like going for a walk, but I need headphones. Like it's just what gets me out of whatever. But
yeah, I mean, count to 8 as you do steps, like maybe 4 or 5 times, and you're just like, wow, I must have been stressed, because I'm like walking to go get a coffee and I'm like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But you do that 2 or 3 times, similar to yourself, you just end up laughing at yourself and you're like, whew, I must have been riled up. But imagine if I had spoken to someone at that point of time.
That's definitely true. Yeah.
And it's super easy, especially now in the rain, because your feet make that nice pip out as you're like walking out in the rain. And it's something as simple as like, it only takes 8 beats for me to calm down, because now I'm just used to going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Then you already know that.
And then I'm like, oh mate, you must be stressed. Go and take a seat. Because I'm like, you've just been counting to 8 walking the street. And it sounds simple, but it's having those techniques, like as in like someone's annoying me. Okay, I'm throwing this weight ball. And you're like, my boss is frustrating me. I'm going for a walk. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Just being able to be like, you're wound up.
Yeah, you won't kill your boss anymore.
Yeah, and like has anyone had those arguments with your partner before where you're like, I'm right, and they're like, I'm right, and 20 minutes later you're like, maybe I was wrong. And then like the idea of saying that you were wrong is more hurtful than saying they were right. To be like, and like one thing that I get along with my partner was is sometimes I just like send her a voice message. I'm like, hey, that thing that you were talking about, I was totally wrong on it. And I relieve myself with that stress of having to be wrong. I give her the benefit of like knowing that I've made that change, and it releases that stress from me, and it doesn't take me into the next day. And
that was really true.
what that allows me to do is like sometimes I'm in a conversation with my boss, and I'm like, you know what, you're completely right. I may have made the wrong choice on this. And I was like, but here's the reasons why. And in future, like, I'm glad that I could tell you that I didn't feel this was right, because then I don't have that anxiety of telling you about that moving forward.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
So I mean, I think the vulnerability thing has just been a big life changer for me. Not just working out, but being able to say to people, hey, I'm happy with this choice, or I'm not happy with this choice that I made, and being able to just flip between the two of being like, you know, maybe I could have dealt with things better. That vulnerability in me makes other people vulnerable, because straight away they're normally like, no, you were right. It was me that was wrong. Whereas sometimes we can be those two bulls hitting heads together, and that can just lead to the stress.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think also like saying that you're wrong, it gives you also the time to analyze your own decisions and also be a better person somehow.
Yeah, I used to think I was right in everything.
Yeah, the stuff.
You know, and knowing that I'm not the best at everything has made me better at so many more things, because there's normally someone that's better at something than me. And if I say, hey, this isn't a strong point, and they start telling me like what they do, then I'm like, actually, I knew a lot about this, but now I know that little bit extra, I can be a better person. So yeah, that vulnerability, like, and I'll end on this because we're over on time, but someone told me the wanting of wanting to be better causes so much stress, as opposed to the acceptance of where we are and the wanting to be 1% better every day. You know, like my house isn't as big as I want, my car isn't as big as they want, I don't look like I want, my job's not what I want. The wanting of wanting to be better leads to us like worried every day that we're not there. Whereas like if we look at where we were as kids and where we are now, a lot of us would be really happy with where we are, and being able to appreciate that and be like, tomorrow I'm going to be better than I was today. Like it really helps us make those steps to reduce that stress. And like when I was 129 kilos and like panicking about everything and drinking during the day, and I was like stressed as hell, all I wanted to be was someone that I wasn't. And there were lots of people that would have traded in for my position. So it's all that relative perspective. But on that, I've run over time, but I would just like to give yourselves a namaste and have a wonderful evening. And I really appreciate you spending time with me tonight.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.